Welcome back to the Beantown Boys podcast. It's been a minute
or two.
There's there's a thing going on in the world. I don't really know what it is. I haven't really heard much about it.
I think it's called a cramdemic.
Yeah, that was
Something like that.
a cramdemic. That's what it was. So we're back finally. I'm Leo Brown. I'm joined by Dylan Heward.
Yes, sir.
And Kid Sawyer. And we're going to get right into it. We're going to get into the draft lottery and how Detroit got snaked, Ottawa got snaked, LA didn't get snaked, but pretty much everybody else did. So we're going to get right into it. If you guys haven't been paying attention, the way... Now, I don't really know how the draft lottery worked because it was a really complicated explanation, but I'm just going to paraphrase. Basically, the, how many? 8? Was it 7 teams that didn't make it? Math?
8 games. 7 teams.
8.
7.
8 because Buffalo got the 8th spot.
No,
yeah,
but there's a 24-team tournament.
Yeah, there's that one spot, and it's whoever loses with the worst record gets that 8th spot in the
yeah, okay, so it's
7
teams that were in the lottery
plus that one extra
plus the play-in team that loses and wins the lottery, or potentially could win the lottery. So we had Buffalo getting 8th, New Jersey getting 7th, Anaheim getting 6th, Ottawa getting 5th and 3rd, Detroit gets 4th, and LA won, quote unquote, and got 2nd. And some unknown team that we don't know yet got the first overall pick because, of course, they did.
The things I was hearing, the teams that are most likely are Nashville and Montreal.
Well,
Columbus.
All the teams that are in the play-in that have their first-round pick have equal odds of 12.5%.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm saying those are the teams that you're looking for that might have that first pick.
How about Mr. Leo Brown gets into this little theory that he
Well,
has?
I have 2 theories. First, the theory in the lottery, it was rigged. All right, the NHL,
oh God,
they wanted to get that extra revenue, which I can't blame them because they lost a lot of money. But my theory is that they purposely were like, okay, we're gonna make sure that one of the play-in teams gets one of the top 3 picks. Because you never watched the little lottery ball thing. You didn't watch that before they announced the teams. They showed it afterwards.
They do the same thing with basketball.
But the NHL normally does that first.
Oh, okay.
So you see it, but you didn't see it. So they could have rigged it. But they probably didn't. I'm just joking. Now, my main theory has to do with my Leafs. And so... bear with me here. We're going to lose the play-in round, which is going to suck, but we're going to get the first overall pick. Now, if you're Ottawa, Pierre Dorion, the GM of the Ottawa Senators,
he's a trash can.
He had 25% odds of getting the first overall pick, and he didn't get it. Now, if he wants to keep his job, he's going to make an attempt to get the first overall pick. And if he doesn't get it, I mean, even if he tries, the owner, Eugene Melnyk, might just fire him because... he can. Now,
good reasoning.
If you're Pierre Dorion, you're going to call whomever gets the first overall pick. Now, he immediately calls the Leafs and says, hey, look, I'll give you the 3rd and the 5th if you give me the first overall pick. Now, Kyle Dubas, being the galaxy brain man that he is, he's like, well, I could do that. Or I could give you Mitch Marner for the 3rd and the 5th. And since Pierre Dorion is either... well, now he's proven to not be a smart GM because he didn't get the first overall pick. That would have saved him and made him look really smart. Because if he got that, all was forgiven. I traded Erik Karlsson for basically the first overall pick, who's Alexis Lafreniere, who's a stud.
On top of it, if he's not getting the first overall pick, I think getting someone like Mitch Marner, who's somebody who could run play in Ottawa and play big minutes... play all around, that's something he would go, oh, okay.
But
yeah,
can I also...
I love Mitch Marner. I have my thoughts on him. We're not going to get into it.
Trust me.
But if we... to be devil's advocate, Karlsson wasn't also playing like himself this year either.
Yeah,
with he's San Jose.
Broken.
So he wasn't playing
let's,
as a first round.
Let's finish theory here, and then we'll get into that. Now, Pierre Dorion being the man that he is, he's going to accept the Mitch Marner deal. So now we have first, third, and fifth. Now what we're going to do
Is this full salary?
Is it full salary? Yeah, of course it is.
You really think he's going to take that entire salary?
What is their cap space? I
don't know.
I think they have
if
a lot of
if
cap
I was
space.
him, I'd try to at least finagle. I don't know,
hang on,
5%.
let's look at their cap space. I doubt Ottawa is
Retain
close to the cap.
10%.
It's also very unlikely for this to happen because, again, Montreal is probably going to lose in the first Pittsburgh
No, I have Montreal winning.
against
Wow.
Pittsburgh.
Okay, well, they have 7 in cap. Who do they have coming off the books?
Oh yeah, the Wild has a shot at it too.
Yeah, but they got Mikhail Bodker coming off. They got Chris Tierney, who's on $3 million. Why is Chris Tierney on $3 million? I don't know, but Connor Brown's coming off. They have like everybody on the books coming off. They have Ron Hainsey at 3.5 coming off the books. They have Craig
How is
Anderson.
he getting that much?
I don't know.
It's
I can't
Ottawa.
tell you. They have Craig Anderson at 4.75 coming off they have everybody coming off the books. So they're going to have the cap. So they're going to take Mitch Marner. And what we're going to do is we're going to draft Lafreniere, because obviously we would do that. And then we're going to draft Jamie Drysdale. And then we're going to draft who the hell cares. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go on the free agency. And honestly, I don't know how much anybody's going to be worth in free agency just because of what happened, because the cap's not going up. Everybody
Oh,
was
it's just staying the same.
Yeah, it's just staying the same because how is it supposed to go up?
Oh yeah.
The NHL's a revenue-based league in terms of their cap. So
Well, again, they only missed out on maybe a month of regular season.
They missed out on like
And then
20 games per team. That's a substantial amount of money, especially for the NHL where they're not made of like they are made of money, but not NFL level made of money. So we're gonna sign Alex Pietrangelo to I don't know how much.
I honestly think he's going to get around 10-11.
See, I would have said the same thing if the cap kept going up because
I
you
still think-
got to remember it's going to go up next season probably, but how much? Because how long is it going to take until we get fans back in the stands?
I mean, he had a really good season, and he's a right-handed defenseman.
Well, I'm gonna go off of what you said with the fans in the stands. If you're going off of the governors, most of the leagues are already saying it's up to the state if fans can go in and how many fans can go in. Because New Hampshire can have fans. There's people in like North Carolina who can have fans, but it's very minimum.
Yeah, but think about it this way: where we get the majority of the money
Oh yes,
is from
off the-
Toronto,
yes.
New York. I would say Montreal probably contributes a good amount when they're good. So, I mean, Canada's not going to open up right away because they're always, doing the right thing because Canada's just lovely. It's a great place. So they're not going to let fans in for a while. So you're not getting the Toronto revenue. You're not getting the New York revenue most likely because they tend to just do the cautious thing because there's so many people in New York.
Not with this COVID lately, but yeah.
So
Even Boston brings in.
yeah, Boston brings in a lot of money. I mean, we're in stage 2 of reopening, but that doesn't mean when we're fully open, we're going to allow 18,000 people to stand.
It wouldn't be everybody, but like I already hear talks in
The target
going to
date
like
is the
MLB.
30th.
They already said that might be fans in Fenway.
I feel like the
So-
baseball stadiums are a lot bigger and can hold a lot more, though. So you can space that out and still get decent.
Yeah, you
decent
could get
revenue.
NHL level revenue out of. Sorry, if you're the MLB, you could get what the NHL gets in terms of revenue in the stands because you can still space people out and get around 20,000 people in there because they're like what 60,000 ish
About
like per arena. Sorry, stadium. It would
Yeah.
depend, but
Upwards of 60 to 100.
yeah, I mean it depends on the stadium, but it's a lot of people, so you could salvage.
So if you're the Yankees, you can just you could seat half of New York in there and still be fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the NHL, though, you would get probably junior hockey amount, like tier 1 junior league amount of fans in the stands, space them out, probably drive up the price, I would imagine.
I mean, to put it this way, the Bruins can fit about 20,000 people. I think you cut that in half. and then raise the price by like 25%.
I'd say cut it more. Like I'm thinking like anywhere between 6,000 and 8,000 people, which is like around what tier 1 junior teams would get on, a good night. So, I mean, that's going to be expensive tickets. Most of it's going to be in the lower bowl, obviously.
And tickets are already expensive as it is.
Yeah, no kidding. Like I would buying a lower bowl ticket for a regular season game against just a team where the tickets are already cheaper.
Like Arizona.
Yeah, like an Arizona-Boston game. Like, those tickets are cheap. And then why would I want it? I'm a Leaf fan. Why am I going to an Arizona-Boston game? That doesn't make sense to me. If I'm going to a Boston-Toronto game in the lower bowl, I mean, I'd have to save up for months to do that. And it wouldn't be a smart purchase either.
No.
I at least have a family member when I went, and she was one of the ushers, so she brought me and my dad to better seats when we watched that game.
Right.
It honestly, the seats that are up high, they're nice because you can see everything, but when you get down closer to the action,
Well, it's tough
You can
because
feel
if
more
you're-
of the fans.
If you're in the upper bowl, you can see the entire ice, but you can't see detail. Like, it's hard to see the detail of the game. Now, if you're in the lower bowl and you're at, like, the top part of the lower bowl, you can see everything as well as the detail. So that's where I'd want to be if I ever go to a game. But it's easier said than done. Especially because I would want to be in the middle, like on the red line, all the way at the top, and those tickets are obviously
imagine being picky, going to a
Yeah, imagine
game.
being able to see the whole ice. I mean,
Imagine not just going for the entertainment value, just the experience alone, man.
Anyways, let's get back to the lottery. So I saw this thing on Twitter this morning from ISS Hockey, and they were just doing like a top 8 mock draft. And they said, obviously Lafreniere's going 1. And they said the Kings are going to take Drysdale at 2. Ottawa takes Byfield at 3. Stutzel goes to Detroit at 4. Ottawa does their other pick and takes Marco Rossi. Cole Perfetti goes to Anaheim. Jake Sanderson goes to New Jersey. And Alexander Holtz goes to Buffalo. Now,
I like that.
I don't hate it, but I don't understand why LA would want to take a defenseman. Because
they have Tobias Bjornfoot, but other than that, I don't really think they have too many big name defensive prospects. Whereas for centers, they at least have Velarde, and I know they have a couple other guys that could come up and play.
Yeah, but the way I'm looking at it is LA is operating on a window right now, and their window's probably like 5 years max, depending on what they can get out of Jonathan Quick. And I mean, they develop goalies like it's nothing, so it doesn't really matter. But Quick's still a good goalie. He's just had a rough couple of years.
They had Campbell.
Yeah, but he wasn't a starting. He had the prospects of being a starting goalie, but he just never became that.
I'm pretty sure he was starting in LA. But I mean,
yeah, because Quick was bad. There's a difference between being a starting goalie.
It's like when
and
Scott
being
Darling took over for Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, that's a starter out of necessity, not because he's...
I'd say he's more of a fringe starter than...
Yeah. But they still have Quick, and if he can get his game back together, I mean, we'll see. And then you still have Doughty, who, when you look at him, when you watch him and just watch him play, and nobody else on the ice, which I have done a couple of times, he's playing bad, but he's not playing bad because he's a bad player. He's playing bad because he's obviously not trying. Like, you can watch him in their quote-unquote glory days when they were winning cups, and his effort level was at 110% every single game, and he was clocking a ton of ice time.
I mean,
And
does he
he's-
have a reason to try?
Yes.
Currently, does he really have a reason to try? Because they're not competing.
Yeah, but he has a reason to try if he can convince. If he's thinking about it the way he should be, he has every reason to try. But he's not thinking that way right now.
Because in his mind, he's like, okay, we're garbage.
Yeah.
We're not going to make the playoffs. What's the point of me trying unless we had a shot at making the playoffs?
Yeah, I think he might just be doing the the smart thing allegedly, which is play bad on purpose. Because even if I'm playing at the top of my game, we're not going to make the playoffs.
And he's just trying to
when
save
does
face
his
so he doesn't get hurt.
I was going
Or
to say
just trying to get the good draft pick, which that's exactly what they did. So if that's what his intentions were, good on you, Doughty.
I was going to say, or when does his contract end and he can try to go to a
He
different...
just got re-signed
he
recently.
just got-
He's on
okay.
an 8-year deal.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Never mind.
He's on his last contract right now.
And that's the other reason why I think Petrangelo's going to be. He's going to be like, okay, I'm right-handed. Doughty's right-handed. Doughty's making.
I'm better than Doughty.
Doughty's making like 10-5, I think, something like that. Or was it 11? Might have been 11.
Doughty is, I think it's 10.5. If I want to guess. Cat friendly. Save me here.
Yeah, if you're Petrangelo, you go.
Oh no, you're right. It's 11.
It's 11.
Yeah.
You say, okay, I'm better than Doughty. The lowest I'm going is 11.
Yeah, because especially the way free agency's marketed and how you determine what somebody's worth is what has this player done for his team lately, and compared to his peers, what have they done for their teams lately? And I mean, it's easy to just put those two together and see which one's better. And if you look at the last season, Doughty didn't do much for you lately, so his value's diminished. Petrangelo was trying and just came off a cup win. From the year prior.
He's doing really good, too.
Yeah, and had another good year. So,
on top of it, his value also rises because of all the bidders that are going to be in on him.
see, I don't think there's going to be a lot of bidders, though, because all these owners lost a lot of money, and most teams who need him don't have that kind of money just, to spend and not worry about it, considering what just happened this season. So the ownership is going to be pressuring the GMs to, if you're going to sign somebody, it can't be over this number, whatever that number is.
So do you think maybe he takes a 1-year, lowball deal while everything gets sorted out and then tries to go for a big-time contract?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options that he could take. He could go with the, you know what, I'm still set for life because I'm an NHL player. And I'm, hopefully smart with his money. I'm just going to take an 8-year deal. Or sorry, it'd have to be a 7 if it's anybody but St. Louis. And just not worry about it. And just end my career on, whatever team I want to go to. Or he could bet on himself and just do a 1-year. I'm Alex Petrangelo. Not that worried about having a bad year. And just hope that the revenue's back for next free agency.
Because if he does that, what's stopping him from maybe going to a contending team that needs him and doing a 1-year $5 million or 1-year $6 million or something like that?
Toronto. No, I there's a lot of options. I mean, you couldn't do that. He could just stay with St. Louis. That's always an option. What is he making right now?
I mean, yeah, that's the other thing. If he's going to free agency and St. Louis goes, hey, 8 years, we'll give you all this money because you're not going to get it in free agency.
He's making 6.5.
Oh, he's getting a pay. He's getting a.
Yeah, but I mean, even you just said, a 1-year, $5 million. That's already a pay cut versus what he's already making. So he could just stay at 6.5 for a year, and see what he can do. I mean, I don't see a reason to leave St. Louis. It's a great team. It's got a lot of depth.
You're the captain.
Yeah,
it's
you
your
have
team.
everything you need. You have good centers. You have a fantastic set of wingers.
And they have good prospects.
Yeah, and then also you have Jordan Binnington, and I actually kind of want to get into him a little bit later.
Because they have it. He has the chip. Most players, after they get the chip, they just want the money. It doesn't matter where you go. If you can get a fat contract, you're going to go to that team.
Yeah, but it's weird in the NHL because it makes no sense, but for some reason, some players just have this weird sense of they need to be loyal to the team, even though that is entirely fabricated.
Look at Bergeron got the championship, and he still stayed, and he doesn't even have that big of a contract.
Yeah, and it was
Drew Doughty signed for a lot of money, but he stayed with LA. The Bergeron stayed with Boston, and he did not get a big-time contract.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. There's a way of looking at it in terms of,
would he be
if
big anywhere
every
else?
single player buys in and takes a pay cut, we can just be this stacked roster. And even though that is the case, I wouldn't consider Boston a stacked team. I mean, I don't like. They're a fantastic team, but I don't think they're stacked.
They're good because they have a good system in place.
Yeah, they have a great system that works for every player that they have, and they all buy into it.
I mean, when you look at it, your top offensive producers are Marchand and Pasternak. Bergeron's up there, but I mean...
He doesn't put up points, though.
He puts up like 70, 80.
Yeah, but that's not...
when he's healthy.
That's not offensive superstar numbers. That's just I play with these two guys, I'm going to get points.
Your number 3 for, like, offensive producers would be Torrey Krug, and that's a defenseman.
Who might be walking this offseason anyways.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
Well, I'm already saying he's probably going to walk anyways, but...
See, it's so weird, though, because if this whole pandemic thing didn't happen, without a question, he's gone. But because of this, most likely.
But
he might
honestly, not be. Because of the pandemic, see Torrey Krug doing that, like, 1 year, like, I'll do one more year. Give me, like, 6, 7, because he's going to want money.
Right.
And honestly, I'm hearing the lowest he could be going for is 8. Going into free agency.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody offers him 8 over 7, he's dumb not to take it because he's left-handed. And that's the only reason. If he's a left-handed D and he's a small offensive guy, you know, he can win a Norris because he puts up points, but he's not going to win a Norris because he's a good defenseman. There's a difference. And if somebody offers him 8, he's got to take it.
It should be the best defenseman to win the Norris.
There should be. I mean, we're not going to get into it. There should be two different awards.
Discussion before.
Yeah, there should be 2 different awards. But
yeah, I think because Torrey Krug just getting to know him for so long, if he's played for the team, he's taken pay cuts. He's making like 5.5 now. I know he was asking for around 7 or 6.5 at that time.
Right.
So he could just say, I'll give you guys one more year. I'll give you guys one more year.
Now, he wasn't on 2011, right?
He came out a year after.
Yeah. Quit coughing.
No.
Yeah, I mean, he went to the finals with Boston.
Twice.
And they didn't win.
He lost in 6 games and then 7 games.
He's been close. So he has to think, you know, do I want to try this again with this aging core? That's what it is. And see what we can do. Or I can go to another team, take what I'm worth on the open market and try to win there. Or he can just go for the bring me my money and just go to the highest bidder.
Which if he does that, I think Detroit.
Well, yeah, Detroit. The way I would look at it is if I was Krug to come back, I'd probably see, because you know Bergeron, he usually gets injured and has surgery every single offseason. It'd be up to that and see if your older players are going to be 100% still, not their
That's exactly the
prime,
pitch.
but
if you're Sweeney, your pitch is, listen, we have 2 years max. Are you fine with giving us 1 or 2 more years? We'll give you, say, 7. Say you're asking 8, we'll give you 7.5. Or 7 or 7.5. We'll try to negotiate around there. And you come back for a year or 2 to try to get that championship. After that, I will respect your wishes and let you walk.
Right. I mean, this is honestly we've been paying attention, like you and I, Kid, have been paying attention to hockey pretty much our whole life, and you, Dylan, have been paying attention to it heavily.
5 years.
You've been paying attention to it heavily, I'd say, like the last 2. You've always been paying attention to it because you love sports, and that's just who you are. But, like, you've been, like, really trying to get into it the last couple of years because you hang out with us. You don't really have an option.
Not really.
This is honestly, like, these next 2 years are the most interesting years I've seen as... I'm not a Boston fan, but I pay attention to their, what they're doing. This is the most pivotal point in what I've been able to experience. Their core is going to be retiring soon, most of it, and they gotta, yeah, but Bergeron's coming up, Rask coming, they have to really double down on their player development and their drafting.
Because you're going to be probably losing Char, Rask. A few years later, Krejci, Bergeron.
Krejci before Bergeron.
Marchand.
Krejci's older.
Well, yeah, I know that, but
But
I'm
Marchand's
saying-
still got a few more years.
Yeah.
He's got a few more years, but he's not. It's not going to be the same.
Like he's small. He hasn't really.
He's not going to be being
I don't
put
think
the
he's
top
had-
numbers he has been
Has
lately.
he had repetitive lower body injuries? I don't
He
think
doesn't
so.
get
No.
as much.
Yes.
If you look at it, he actually plays most of the season.
I mean, he can go until his late 30s if he stays healthy.
I'm pretty sure he's like 32, I think?
No, he's not that old.
He's up there
I think he's 32.
because he was a part of
Marchand is
the.
not
He was part of the
32.
2011.
And he has he was 23 in
Mhm.
2011.
How
How old is he?
how is he 32?
God, bro!
I was going to say because he's been here for a while. He was with the 2011 team.
But okay, well, he's 32. He doesn't feel 32 to me.
Because he plays with like this youthful exuberance.
Yeah, he plays small. It's just he doesn't.
But that's the thing that in his advantage, I'm gonna say, is he could, once he realizes his skills are diminishing, he could literally just become a defensive specialist because he's already a good two-way forward.
Right.
So he could just become a defensive specialist, play on the PK, and play third or fourth line.
Yeah, I mean, his wheels, as long as he has his wheels, he can do whatever he wants. I mean, skating's gonna be the most important thing in the sport for probably the next 20 years, and then we'll see how it transitions after that.
Because it always does. It always goes, like, if you look at it, the 80s was like, you did not score more than, like, in the 80s.
The 80s was having a goalie who could have a below 4 goals against average.
If your goalie had an 880, you were a good goalie.
Yeah, like
Like-
that makes no sense.
So,
Yeah, we'll put the
scoring-
smallest guy in the team in the part of the game where he needs to stop things. Yeah, all right, yeah.
Scoring was at a premium, and then it went to the dead puck era, where it was all who can outgrind the other team. That's basically what it was. It was a battle of attrition.
Yeah, now it's like
And now it's back to that kind of finesse and scoring.
it's a hybrid of the two. Because you have teams that win trying to outgrind you and outwork you, and then you have teams who try to win.
like Ottawa
playing-
back in, was that the 2015 season?
Well, okay, did they?
I think it was
They
2016.
rode Eric Carlson, and that's it.
I was
No,
going to
I'm
say,
saying they did, but other than that, they played a trap and they just tried to outgrind
yeah,
it.
that was 2016.
Yeah, I mean
I
they.
swear.
And they just let Eric Carlson do whatever the hell he
Yeah,
wanted to do.
I mean that's
Eric
it's
Carlson
such a
wants
bad
to send
system.
a freaking Tom Brady
Like-
deep toss all the way to Mike Hoffman.
Kind
Let
of
him
got
do
off
it.
topic. Of
your
the
whole
rookies.
system was just hoping that this one guy who's playing on one leg doesn't lose his other one.
Hey.
Hey,
leg
you
and a
had
half.
Stone. You had Stone.
Hoffman.
Yeah, I mean you had Stone, but Stone's a two-way guy. He's not going to put up
Well, no, but
in the playoffs. He's not going to put up 30 points. That's not what Mark Stone is. He's a great player, but he's a great two-way player.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great He's probably the best defensive forward in the league, but because he doesn't play center, he doesn't get the recognition for it.
I mean, Bergeron is still up there for that.
Stone
and even
skates.
Barkov.
Stone skates better than
Even
Marchand, though.
Barkov.
I mean,
So underrated.
he's up there. He's top 5, but he's not there because he's just not. He's got to wait for those guys to go away, basically.
Because Kopitar's up there. Ryan O'Reilly has been for a
All
couple
right,
years.
let's
go back to the mock draft
Oh,
we
yeah,
were supposed to do like a
That-
while
that
back.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered the top 10. I mean, we can go into it in depth.
Oh, I thought we were
If
going
you
to do
want
with
to.
who- I was going to say because I thought that's the whole reason I did my research.
I mean, quite honestly, I don't have anything to say on those guys except for like what the teams need, but not what those players are. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
well,
Because I know
put that research to use. Dylan, of all the people that you researched, who was the most intriguing to you?
to me.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple interesting ones for me. Like
Pasternak.
I obviously said like what you did. If the Senators need to trade up, so they're going to use their 3 and 5 to try to go for that first. But I said if they're not, their first pick in the third was going to be.
Can I pause you for a second? You're talking like this. You need to be in
Here.
front of the mic
Yep.
because that's how microphones work.
I don't know that one.
I can't talk to the mic like this.
Is going to be Marco Rossi. I'm right.
Just
I'm
It's Rossi.
Rossi.
producer for a reason.
They don't have that number one center. So I feel like in that organization, if they don't get that move up for Lafreniere, this would be their best pickup.
They have pick 3. So say that Byfield drops.
But I have him going to the Canes
because,
there.
I mean, some people are thinking that.
Because people Lafreniere is supposed the number one. Like it's pretty much a lock.
No question.
Byfield and Stutzel are going from 2 and 3. But Jamie Drysdale could hop up if the Kings decide to take a defenseman. Even at that, if Drysdale goes to LA or if Stutzel goes to LA, why not take Quentin Byfield? Being 6'3" and about 215.
But like I was saying, I was having him go to the Canes anyways because they don't need a defenseman. They have enough defensemen there, and they have a team where Byfield can stay in the A for maybe 1 or 2 years to develop and then get into the N.
And LA already plays pretty slow anyway.
Yeah.
They don't need another D-man. Their forwards are going to help. I mean, unless they want to change their system, obviously, but...
Which I really doubt that they kind of want to right now.
Defensive and center prospects. I mean, they need prospects.
Yeah.
In general, they need everything. But, I mean, Rossi's still a good...
And he was leading the CHL for scoring too, so that's why I put him there. And I also had them with the 5th picking Holtz because he was he can just shoot it anyway and it usually goes in.
I like Holtz a lot. I think he's one of the more pure scorers in this draft. But I think Lucas Raymond could be someone that goes there because of his playmaking ability and still being able to.
But the only thing is, a lot of the scouts aren't really liking him, so that's why I had him dropping down to the 8th pick with the Sabres because a lot of the scouts don't like him right now, and they're just saying that he's like Mitch Marner, and
one-dimensional.
Yep.
Yeah, so
one-dimensional.
He's just a passer.
Yep, and hasn't been really seen a lot, and he hasn't been really.
Marner's lucky. He's like the best one-dimensional player. Because if he wasn't like, without a doubt in the top 3 of playmakers, he wouldn't be that great. Because I mean, he doesn't shoot, he doesn't hit, and he skates well. He's got good hands and he passes well. But you never see him just taking the puck for himself. So he might.
Well, from what I've
might be in a spot where if he does go to the Sabres, even though the Sabres are not known for their player development, they need to develop him and give him other tools and make him a
Well, it might help Eichel a little bit right there too because he has the guy out there to pass it too.
You could have a similar situation like Matthews and Marner. But you would, I mean, I kind of see it sometimes watching the Leafs where Marner will just force it to Matthews, and Matthews is like, there's 3 guys here. What do you expect me to shoot to? I can't get to the goalie. Just shoot yourself. Because Marner's got a good shot. It's not great, but it's good, and he never uses it. I wouldn't doubt that kid also has a good shot too.
Raymond has a really good shot. I watched him play in the World Juniors, and he was phenomenal.
Right.
I mean, he could shoot him with the best of the kids that were shooting. Like with his line mate Holtz. But it might just be a confidence thing. He might be thinking, well, passing is my greatest asset. I'm just going to use that.
Yeah, I mean,
he's 18. And he was.
They're children. They are our age. They have time.
He's 18 and he was playing in a men's league in Sweden and he was doing good for himself.
Yeah, I mean, if you can play overseas in a pro league where you're playing against grown men who, are tougher than the children you were playing with, because you have to, remember, especially with Junior, yeah, he put up 115 points. But he's in his draft year and also playing against 16-year-olds. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you put up that much points, but how many of those points were 8-point games because the goalie's 16. You know what I mean?
It's impressive if it's like, say, Shane Wright, who's 15 years old, and he's playing against people that are bigger and like more developed than he is.
Yeah.
But for like Lafreniere to go out there and do that, that's kind of expected.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not taking away from the fact that he is a great player. It's just expected because he's playing against people that are about the same strength and weight that he is.
Yeah, and in such a small number of his teammates and opponents are making it to the show.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you are playing international, like with Matthews, he noticed if he went international and played against men, he'd develop better.
Yeah, I mean, he could have played junior if he wanted to.
And he would have dominated.
Yeah.
I honestly think he probably could have thrown up a 160-point season.
Yeah, and that would have, like, overlocked up him at number one. But, you know, he and his family, because that's who he didn't just decide that for himself. He talked it with his family, and then he went there with his mom to go play overseas. It's an underrated decision that I feel like a lot of,
I think it's the
specifically
better decision.
defensemen and centers, they should think about doing that more often. You know,
They need to learn to use their weight and their positioning
Exactly.
more than a winger does. Raymond can go out there and play against men and just fly if he wants to. Like, he doesn't need to worry about getting bumped or anything.
Yeah, now that I'm actually just more thinking into it, with defensemen, it might be a bad idea, actually. Well, no, it's
As long as you're
there's
not
two
in the
sides.
KHL.
There's two sides to the same coin because, you know, you could go overseas as a defenseman and you have to learn how to manage that space and because they play on larger ice.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that might also halt your reaction time development because if you're playing on that small ice, even though the opponents are arguably worse than what you would have been playing against overseas, you have to make the decision so quickly that it might just, you know, also be comparable to what you're going to be playing against at the next level. Because you still have to make the same decision at the same time. Just because the opponent's worse, that doesn't mean you know, aren't developing yourself mentally.
I think that's what I like about the USHL is a lot of their games are international, but a lot of their games also they play around here.
Well,
So they split the time, and you really have to adjust to playing on both sets of ice.
yeah, I mean, the USHL is basically what the three big junior leagues are in Canada. And Canada also does go overseas and play on the international ice in tournaments with their under 18, under 20 programs, under 16 programs. So that's just the US's variation of that. It's basically the same thing.
They do like a half and half type of thing, but I know they play a lot more games overseas than I think
Canada just doesn't have time.
Canada does.
They have too much stuff to do.
And there's just so many USHL kids, and there's just not enough places for them to play. So you ship them overseas to go play some games over there. But I like that because it lets you kind of work on playing on bigger ice, but then you come back and you're like, okay, now I'm playing on smaller ice, and it lets you grasp the concept of, you know, management, your space management, your puck
Right.
management.
The thing I find confusing with the USHL, and if anybody who has the answer to this is listening, please let me know on Twitter at Leo34Brown. I don't understand why the USHL's teams are all in the Midwest and not... I'm not saying they should all be over here on the East Coast, but, I mean, if you want to grow the league, you're going to need money to do that, and you're going to make more money over here than the Midwest.
There's probably
I
just
would
a lot
think,
more space.
well, then all the younger kids, if you look at the college teams, at least I want to say, a lot of the good teams are Midwest and Eastern areas.
Yeah, but I think I can look at the name of all the teams that they have. But I want to say that the closest team is Chicago.
Because I know Minnesota is a big population for the younger kids in hockey.
Let Let me open this image because I can't
mean, that's
read
more-
that.
I wouldn't
Because
say
that's what I'm
Midwest,
saying.
though.
Because
Okay, I was wrong. The closest team is the Phantoms. And where exactly are they? What does it say their city on the logo? That would be fantastic if it did. Please do. I can't read that. Cool. Bear with me here.
I will try to pull it up at the same time.
I think it could just be the
Youngstown. They play in Youngstown. It's in Pennsylvania.
So it's still in
Yeah.
the East Coast, but
But I mean, Pennsylvania it's closer to Pittsburgh for reference. So they have the Pittsburgh market, and then they have. Why does that team's logo not even say what they are? That is crazy. I mean, they have a few teams that are Eastern. You know, they have Chicago, they have the Pennsylvania team, but a lot of them are just Midwest, which just doesn't. I don't know. Maybe they do fine. I don't know. I don't look at their revenue, so they might be fine. I'm just,
I mean, their whole thing is literally to just develop U.S. kids, and a lot of U.S. kids do come from the Midwest.
Yeah.
That come and play hockey.
There's actually, I mean,
it could just be more convenient.
Yeah, it might. Well, actually, that might make sense because you think, you're taking kids from the West Coast and the East Coast. It actually might make sense to just centralize it and make it cheaper for them to come here.
East Coast prospect, chances are you're going to play in like the Q or the W or the O. You're
Right.
not going to stay around here, and if you are, you're going right to a D1 college.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there's no point to develop yourself in the USHL at that point. Like, Jack Eichel, he was in the USHL for a little bit, just because when you go to that, it gives you a standard, like, you have to go to college for 1 year type of thing. So he was in the USHL, dominated, obviously, and then he was like, okay, I can go to whatever college I want. I'm going to go to BU.
Yeah, I mean, the USHL does a very good job of developing talent. They are on par, I would think, with the three main junior teams of Canada, the WHL, OHL, and QMJHL.
Which wasn't always the case, but they've come a long way.
Yeah, and I think it'll just take time for them to just consistently get kids who want to come play there who end up being top 5, top 10 draft talent.
Which I would love to see because college hockey has grown so much. I've always been a fan, but it's a lot more entertaining. The product now
Right.
is a lot more entertaining because there's so many more kids that are so talented and could possibly be NHL players. There's a lot more of those guys where you could go, this kid could make it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good decision, I would also think, for having the USHL in the Midwest to just grow the game there because, I mean, it just needs to have more eyes put on it in that area to get more U.S. kids to start playing hockey. And, as someone who is working towards becoming a scout, I just want this game to grow and have more good players playing the game, because they're, what NFL, is it George Kittle who used to play hockey and he was actually pretty damn good at it?
a few people, but I think it might have been Kittle.
Yeah.
I think it is because I remember him saying he's a wicked big hockey fan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure he played.
I mean, that guy's just,
And he's a monster of a human being.
he would have been good at any sport he wanted to play. I mean, that guy's just a freak of
Just
nature.
genetic.
Yeah.
Some people are just like that.
But, you get somebody who had the prospects of potentially being in the NHL and he chose football over hockey, We need to grow the game to where kids are choosing hockey over other sports. And there's a lot that needs to be done to get it to that point, especially in terms of how much money it costs to put your kid through hockey.
Well, one of the reasons why I would think he probably went towards football more is because he could have gotten his education too and know he could make it to the big leagues.
Right.
Well, I mean, football, you either make it or you get to the practice squad.
Yeah, but you're still there, and and football makes it where you have to do all 4 years.
The way I picture the thought process is you're a young kid. You're like 18. and you have the decision to go, okay, I could go pro in hockey, or I could go pro in football and make a lot more money. If you're 18 and you are looking to become a professional athlete, what's your goal? It's to make as much money, like the most money that you possibly can.
Right.
And if you're going to maximize how much money you're making, you're going to go football every single time because there's just so much more money in it. So unless you are truly dedicated to the sport that you love, like if I had that choice, I would play hockey because I love hockey.
Right.
And I wouldn't care if I made less money. But a lot of kids don't see it like that. If you're good at, like Russell Wilson, if he was really good at baseball, he was really good at football, he just made the decision. He's like, okay, I'm going to make more money in the long run playing football. I'm probably going to get on the team a lot sooner playing football than going to baseball.
And wait in the minors for 5 years to finally make the major league.
But it also means you have to be good enough to make it. Because
Right.
if you're not, the contract isn't guaranteed and there is no fallback. You go to some shitty-ass league out in Canada, or you go to some other makeshift league and you make like 25% of what you were making before.
Not even.
Whereas,
That's less than that.
Yeah.
yeah, with hockey or baseball, you at least have semi-pro leagues that you can go to and make decent money.
Yeah, I mean, you can go over to the KHL or I believe the Swedish Elite League is second and like the highest contract.
You can play in the AHL.
Yeah, but if you're in the AHL, you're not making millions.
No, you're not. But I mean, it's still you're
But
making
you can
money.
go over to the K, and it's easier to do that if you're a European because apparently it's a hard transition to if you're an American or a Canadian to go over there, just because of culture and whatnot. But you can go over there and make, a few $1,000,000 if you're a really good player in terms of KHL, or you could go into Western Europe and make, over six figures, which doesn't set you up for life, but you're still playing and making good money. And if you're smart with your money, you can put that into something that'll help you transition out of your career in hockey and into something else.
And at that point, if you're someone who didn't make the NHL, say, and you still want to play pro, but you don't want to play in the AHL, then you go play over there. If you're making six figures, I mean, that's still decent money as long as you're good with it and you get to do what you love.
Right. And that at the end of the day, that's probably the most important thing to
And then at the end of the day,
athlete.
you still have a career in hockey afterwards because you could become an analyst or you could go on to broadcast in the broadcast booth.
Yeah, I mean, if you've played the game, you have so many connections because of that. As long as
That's
you're,
most sports
You
too.
could get-
yeah,
office
as long
job.
as you don't, burn any bridges. If you're a decent human being and you treat people,
So if you're not
nicely.
Jack Eichel, you have a really good chance.
Yeah.
at-
Hell, we
Yeah,
want to do
Jack
that. We had Gronk who went from announcer on Fox to wrestler to back to football.
I mean, yeah, you have connections built, and you can transition to any part of the game that you want, whether it's coaching, being a manager,
A scout.
on the production side of things, on the player development side. There's so many different parts of every sport where if you're not a pro anymore, you can still work in the game. So it's odd that football doesn't have,
more of those.
yeah, just more of those other leagues. Like there's no devoted, second league underneath the NFL. There's no AHL for
There's a
football.
practice
Because
squad, yeah.
there's a practice squad, but the thing is, with hockey, baseball, basketball, and all that stuff, you can play for a lot more years. Football, your prime is right when you get out
It's
of
a very
college.
play now sport.
Right.
To after, because your body, all that contact, constant pounding, you're good for 5 years. Tom Brady's only lucky to be as good as he is now for this many years because he's a goddamn quarterback and he stays in the pocket.
Well, it's a very quarterback catered league now.
Yeah.
A lot of the rules.
Well, it makes sense. You cater to the stars. I mean, if they're bringing in money, you make some changes so you make more money. I mean, that just makes sense. If the NHL did that, they would make more
It
money.
also draws away a lot more people as well because you're not seeing those big hits and you're getting more flags and nobody wants to see the game when you're seeing nothing but yellow flags flying across the field.
That's what
Yeah, but if you've seen...
drew me away from the game.
I mean,
That's what drew a lot of people away from the game, and that's why
That's why I don't care for basketball that much either, because there's a whistle after every single play.
But at the end of the day,
yes.
we talked about this a few weeks ago. We have seen what the NFL's revenue is. They're doing just fine.
Oh yeah, they're doing just fine. But sooner or later, if
Billions
you keep
of
doing
dollars?
stuff like that, plus all the politics I don't see much politics that go into hockey, but all the politics that go into it as well, it's going to
There's
start.
politics in hockey when it needs to be heard.
Yeah, but there's
And
not
sometimes it's too late.
there's not a ton though because of how many. I mean, hockey is more international than football, so there's so many different people playing the game that it doesn't make sense to
But
have
basketball's in it.
conversation.
But I'm not just saying.
Picking up and becoming more personality driven, which is fun. It's fun to see that there's ups and downsides up and becoming more personality driven, which is fun. It's fun to see that there's ups and downsides to it and becoming more personality driven, which is fun. It's fun to see that there's ups and downsides to it and becoming more personality driven, which is fun. It's fun to see that there's ups and downsides to it and becoming more personality driven, which is fun. It's fun to see that there's ups and downsides to it and becoming more personality driven, which is fun. It's fun to see that there's ups and downsides to it and becoming more personality driven, which is fun. It's fun to see that there's ups and downsides to it and becoming more personality driven, which is fun. It's fun to see that there's ups and downsides to it, it's more fun.
Who doesn't
But-
want to see PK Subban?
But going back to the minor league that you were talking about, that's what the XFL was trying to do.
Yeah,
And that's what happened because you saw, once when they shut down, there was quarterbacks getting signed from that team that were allowing to go. They're 1-year contracts, really.
Yeah, because like people who are on the practice squads are good players and they can play. Maybe not the highest level as their teammates because there's always somebody better than you.
Mm-hmm.
But they can still play in a league that'll bring in money. And it sucks that 2020 has been such a pain
Like,
because the XFL was doing well.
the only thing is, I feel like they need to keep, if you're going to do something like that, it's hard because you can't copy the league, but you have to kind of be almost 100% exact to the NFL to be able to get that revenue you want as well.
I don't know. I think they had a decent product. I just don't
XFL
think they...
was drawing people away a little bit, but it's still drawing people in because of the fun rules and safeties, like the kickoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you have to be exactly the same as the NFL in terms of rules because...
Nobody likes a copycat league.
Well, not that, but when you look at the
Necessarily.
European leagues for hockey, it's a different game. There are more penalties because they just don't allow... There's no refs really turning a blind eye to an occasional hook or slash that just wasn't that bad, so they didn't call it. Like, they call everything. The ice is bigger. There's less hitting.
But that's more international. If you're thinking of it like this, or the way I'm thinking of, American football is only really big in America and maybe Europe.
Yeah, but that's because of the NFL. They never made an attempt to... I mean, they make attempts in terms... They play in England and stuff, but they haven't made devoted efforts into growing the game internationally, unless you consider, like, Canada because we're next to each other. Like, that's just going to happen because we're next to each other.
Well, they have their own... That's what I'm saying. Like
That's why we picked up hockey.
Yeah.
CFL. There's the CFL out there, and they're played differently. But what I'm saying is, like, if you're trying to get, like, it's like the NHL and the AHL, you're just using it to get those players better. Just looking at
rules.
just looking at, I'm just saying, like, looking at the XFL, that would be the best way, or like the AFL.
As long as one of those brings a certain uniqueness and isn't the exact same as the NFL, I feel like they had good products that could have been built upon.
I mean, especially when the way the XFL did it, you could have practice squad players in the XFL and it wouldn't hurt your depth in the NFL because the XFL happened afterwards.
Mm-hmm. And it's only for 8 weeks.
Exactly. So you're still getting games and developing your game as a player, and you're not hurting your NFL team. So it's so shitty that 2020 has been the way it is in terms of the pandemic, just because
It did screw over that.
it hurt so many things that were going so well. It sucks, but what are you gonna do? It's life.
I mean, it really is. As people say, I mean, shit rolls uphill and it always comes back down.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, let's transition a little bit to something a little more fun. Buffalo. So let's talk about the dumpster fire that's been going on in Buffalo. The Sabres, not the Bills, because
Bills Mafia, baby, let's go.
They're always doing fun stuff. So if you haven't heard, the Sabres, I mean, we like to joke that Jack Eichel cleaned house. That's really not what it is. What it is the ownership in Buffalo. Were the Pagulas, is that how you say their name? Because they own the Bills too. I think that's their name. Basically what they are doing is taking a more hands-on approach to running the Sabres like they did with the Bills. And because it went well with the Bills...
Well, not 100% well, but yeah.
They're in the playoffs and they're making good money. That's exactly...
They made 1 year in playoffs.
Yeah, but are they going to keep going? You're damn right they are.
Well, yeah,
they have a good team. They put it together and they have a team that's going to keep making the playoffs. And at the end of the day, the Pagulas just care about making money and getting a return on their asset.
You make most money when you make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because you raise prices.
So they're taking a more
first.
hands-on approach to the Sabres. And, I mean, the Sabres weren't run well. And they drafted good players consistently who, if they had the proper player development, would have become great players. Now you have Rasmus Dahlin, who was taken first overall by the Sabres. And I don't think he's really grown his game. And that's because of the Sabres. They haven't developed him. They haven't put in the work.
Even though he's playing well for a young kid in the NHL.
Playing D.
Playing defenseman. He could be so much more.
Yeah, he has... he has every tool he needs to become a Hall of Fame defenseman. He just needs the management around him to develop him and push him in the direction he needs to go and, point out where his flaws in his game are and tell him what he's doing well.
Help him work on becoming a better player.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with, they have Sam Reinhart, and they drafted him high. I don't think he should have been that high, but he's still a good player. He is a good player. He could have been so much more.
Yeah, and then you look at the history of what has happened to some of their players.
Alex Nylander.
Yeah. Alex Nylander is another example of that. And I was going to point mainly to Robin Lehner, who wasn't handled good at all. I mean, he was developed well as a player. I mean, who knows where he could have been if they, were more in tune with him as a person and helped him get help before it led him down the road that he went on. Because I don't know if you're aware of this, Dylan, but Robin Lehner, who is now on the Knights, he's a goalie, he had a drug addiction issue and an alcohol abuse issue and was very suicidal. And because the Sabres just weren't in tune with their players and developing personal relationships, they had no idea. Or if they did, they didn't pay any attention to it because they just assumed he would be fine.
Which really sucks because I like watching him. I think he's one of the better goalies in the NHL.
Yeah, when he's on his game, he's fan-fucking-tastic.
And it sucks that he had to go through that because as playing for a team, your teammates and your managers and your owners, they should have that initiative to make sure you're all right. And it makes him feel even worse knowing that they don't care.
Yeah, they should be a family environment.
So for him to go down that path alone and then finally come to the realization of, I'm a great person, I'm a great goalie, I can be great, I just need a better environment.
Yeah, I mean, it goes both ways where it took Laner a while to just, realize he needed help, but somebody could have told him that he needed help and helped him get it before he realized it.
It takes so long for somebody with an addiction issue or depression or anything on the darker end of the spectrum to realize that there's something wrong, to realize that they need help.
Well, yeah, especially
because they always feel like they need it. They don't know that they actually desperately need it until
especially
it's too
with
late.
addiction, because when you're on whatever your choosing is, or that was a terrible sentence, but whatever you're on, what you're on, your brain isn't in the right frame. You're not thinking correctly. There's no way you can. So there's no way you could realize while you're
No, there's not.
doped up or whatever you want to
from
say.
experience on both ends. My mom was a drug addict. She's been clean for a few years now. I think she's going on 5. But all she cared about was getting high. Because naturally when you abuse something for so long, your body needs it to stay alive, or it feels like it needs it to stay alive.
Yeah, I mean, I've never, personally myself had to deal with something like that, but, I would imagine it'd be something like you're not even in your own brain, if that makes sense. Somebody else is just controlling the wires and you're just, sitting in the corner watching.
The best way to describe it would be like that episode of SpongeBob where Plankton takes over.
Right.
So...
Yeah. This is a great episode.
She couldn't make the right decisions because she couldn't make her own decisions.
Right.
Her brain was saying, listen, we need this. If you don't get it, then we're going to be sick, and you don't want to be sick.
And that was, probably similar with Laner, where there's a direct correlation between the years where he struggled and those were the years where he had problems. They go together with him. So when he's, keeping up on his mental health, he's a rock star, and he's just he's stopping almost everything. His year with the Islanders, he was in a fantastic headspace, clearly, because he stopped literally everything.
He was rock solid. And I think that's...
He was robbing the opponents. Get it? Because his name's... No.
Dylan's leaving.
That is
loud.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
Because that's what he usually did.
Yeah, but you're supposed to hit the drum first and then the cymbal, not the cymbal.
It's a little rusty. He's a little rusty.
Listen, it's been a while.
All right.
Let me get back
100 and something days in sports, all right?
Now let's get back to Buffalo here. What? So I think the Pegulas have.
Sell
I'm
the
just going to
team.
assume their name is the Pegulas. I think they've done the right thing where they cleaned house. Now it's up to them to bring in the proper personnel, and they hired a new GM. I believe he's been with them for a while.
He was like the assistant manager or something
like that, yeah. And if his efforts combined with their efforts bring in the right people, specifically on the player development front, honestly, I feel like that's more important than scouting, because you can scout as many good players as you want, but a lot of those kids after the top 5, they need things to work on and bring them up to where they can be. And if you can't do that, then you're never going to be good.
On top of that, it's not hard to get a good player, because if you're a bad team, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a good player.
Yeah, anybody you bring in is probably going to be better than what you have.
Anybody in that draft, no matter if it's pick number 1 or it's the very final pick in the draft, has the potential to be a good player. It all depends on the player themselves' work ethic and what you guys can do as an organization to help grow and motivate this player.
Exactly.
See, now I have an idea. The same thing I want to say to the Detroit Lions. Sell the damn team. You're not doing good. You have been doing good for years. And you got your money from the Bills. Just sell the team.
But the thing is, you have a decent team.
Yeah,
you have a decent team, but you haven't been doing anything with it for who knows how long.
Yeah, because they were taking a hands-off approach. They assumed that these hockey people could do better than them. And clearly the ones they had couldn't do that. So now they're stepping in and trying to fix it.
And then the second wave of this is going to be getting players to play with Eichel. And that's something you have to talk with Eichel about.
Yeah, what kind of... he's got.
'Cause he's the captain.
He's the captain of the team. He has to work with the coach, and they together have to work with management. Be like, look, what kind of team are we going to be? Especially with the player development, because they need to figure out what kind of people they got to bring in. Because you look at a lot of the good teams around the league, and they're known for developing specific kinds of players. Toronto, forwards. Boston, defensemen. LA, goalies. Nashville, defensemen. Anaheim, just two-way guys. That's what they do, as well as goalies, because they had 2 rockstar goalies on at the same time. I mean,
Anaheim has probably one of the best development teams. Just with what they bring.
Yeah, they're very well-rounded, yeah.
They get forwards, they get defensemen, they have goalies. I mean, there's not really a bad player that comes out of Anaheim.
No.
They're either serviceable or they're good.
Yeah. I mean, and then you look at Buffalo, and it's like, you're known for being bad, but on terms of player development, you're not known for anything. You're good players where players who, when you drafted them, were the obvious choice. Like, you didn't develop Jack Eichel. He was the obvious choice at number 2.
Which even still, because they have poor management and they mismanage and misdevelop a lot of players, he could have gone downhill. But
right.
I think because he's so driven to win, he's stayed at the top of his game.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Massachusetts kid. Massachusetts kids aren't really known for being not stubborn.
No, we're stubborn, and I mean, you are one of 2 things. You're either extremely lazy, which he wouldn't be in the NHL if he was lazy.
Yep.
Extremely lazy. Or you just have this drive to compete and win.
Yeah, I mean, that's why most people don't really like Massachusetts people, because we're just stubborn.
Massholes.
Yeah, I mean, it has its ups and downs of how we are as a people, but I mean, what are you going to do? Anyways, I don't see. Here's the thing: I don't know a lot or pretty much anything about what makes good player development staff. I have no idea what goes into that. But whatever Buffalo had, that was the opposite.
It was the complete opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they just...
It's definitely now in the owner's hands. The ball is in their court.
Yeah, it was a good decision to hit the reset button on the front office, not
and now's
the team.
the perfect time, because you have Jack Eichel locked up, and he's young.
Yeah.
So you guys have plenty of time. You guys can take this 3 or 4 years to really strengthen your core of management and get everything you need, and then bring in the pieces that you need for Eichel. That's when you go to Eichel and say, what do you need?
It's odd, though, because you look at Buffalo's roster, and in terms of the young guys, they have every single piece they need to be a contender. So it's not a rebuild, because they have everything they need. It's the coaching staff, the development staff, which kind of goes hand in hand, and the front office that needs the rebuild, because they need to figure out themselves.
There is still more that team needs offensively.
Yeah, but they need wingers. Oh, okay. That's the easiest thing to find. Just call up Toronto. We have like 40 of them.
Kasperi Kapanen.
But now here's my question, because like you said, I've been only getting into this for seriously for the last 2 years. And this is why I said so. Is the ownership, is this the same person who's owned this team since the start, or is this like the children of them?
They bought the team. It was one of the 2010 years they bought the team. So the last year that Buffalo made the playoffs, I believe the Pakulas bought the team during the summer.
And are they hockey people? That's what I'm saying, because they own.
No, they're not.
So,
but
that's what I'm saying.
But you look at it this
yourself?
Well, that's
to find the hockey people you need if you don't know it.
Hang on, though. They assumed that the hockey people that they hired, and obviously there's been turnover over the last how many years they've owned the team. They assumed that these hockey people knew how to build the Sabres. So they just said, okay, you guys are the hockey men.
They gave them free reign.
Yeah, you guys are the hockey men. You do hockey men things. And clearly that was not the answer.
So maybe they're not going to like get fully involved, but they've definitely noticed like we're awful.
Yeah.
We want to be good. We have a team that can be good. So what do we need to do as owners to make the team better? And the best way to make a team better is to change everything.
Yeah, I mean, if your best player on the ice, who's a superstar, does not trust your front office, that's a problem.
That's saying something. Like, that is a big problem.
Because he can't do it all. Eichel can't do everything. He's one guy.
As the owners, I think you communicate with your captain and ask his opinion.
And hopefully Eichel is, in tune with the rest of the team, not just acting what he thinks is right.
Mm-hmm. As a captain, you should be.
Yeah.
So they get his thoughts on what is best for the team and then talk to the coach because they have a good coach.
Mm.
And you get his opinions on things. Because you don't know hockey, the best thing you could do is get as many opinions as possible and then formulate your own.
Yeah, I mean, this draft actually will be very interesting for them because they fired the whole scouting staff. Every single one. They fired them. And if I was the new GM and ownership, clearly the scouting staff, I mean, see, here's the thing. I would put some of the blame on them, but not all of it.
It's not hard to get good players when the players are handed to you, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Like, Dylan Cousins was handed to them.
It's complicated because if the scouts that you had weren't identifying the problems that needed to be developed with the players they drafted, then yeah, absolutely they should all be fired. But if they were identifying the problems and the team just wasn't developing them, then that's on the development side.
How many of their draft picks that weren't first-round picks actually succeeded? I guarantee you it wasn't many.
So the Steve Dangle podcast actually talked about this like a week or two ago. I can't remember the names, but it's literally like two guys.
That's not successful because if you look at the guy that was running the Bruins, the GM of the Bruins back before the core now, he drafted this core.
Mm-hmm.
He got these guys in the second round or third round, like Marchand and Bergeron and Krejci. That is successful scouting and drafting.
Right.
Like, if you can get players that aren't first-round talent, because if you go in the first round, chances are you're going to be an NHL player if you just put in half your effort. If you're going in the second or third, all the way to the seventh round, and you come up and become a successful player, then you have good scouts. You have a successful scouting.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any model that you want to build around in terms of scouting and player development, just Tampa is the key example.
Steve Yzerman is...
Well, Dylan, you know who Nikita Kucherov is.
Yeah.
Fantastic guy.
You know
what round was he taken in? What round? Just take a guess.
I would say first, second.
And I believe it was the second round. And I believe it was.
I was going to say late first.
I think it was third.
Early
or fourth.
second.
I think it was third or fourth.
But it's not a first round pick, and you would expect a guy like that if you didn't know hockey and you just looked at his stats. Oh, he's probably a top 5 pick easily because he's fantastic. But Nikita Kucherov was taken in the second round, 58th overall.
That's
really late. Super late second round pick.
I still said second. I'll give myself that one.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the early second round guys are like borderline first rounders sometimes, and he wasn't even that.
Well, it all depends on the draft too, because sometimes there's a draft where you can go to the third, fourth round.
Depends on how deep.
Still
the
get a
draft
decent.
is. I don't think that draft was that deep.
Yeah, the NHL drafts usually don't go.
Well,
so
not
deep.
most sports do.
Yeah, they don't go so deep that the late second round is fucking studs. Like,
last year was considered a really deep draft, and I think about at the halfway point of the second round, there was a severe drop off.
Yeah, I mean there usually is, but I mean once you get past that point, those guys that you're drafting late second round, early third, and fourth, Yeah, they could be solid NHLers. They just have these couple of things that they got to work on. Frederick Gauthier on the Leafs, honestly, he's not a consistent NHLer, but in terms
He's
of
serviceable though.
in terms of player development, he's a very good example of the team putting in the work because, and also he himself put in so much work. He was taken in the first round of 2013, 21st overall. In 2013, wasn't like deep in the first round where like the late first round guys were also studs, like superstar studs.
No, if you look at the drafts, there was severe drop offs. Like after like pick 5, sometimes there just was not good players.
Yeah, and also consider that it was the 2013 Leafs management drafting, so they weren't taking good guys. Their mindset was just take big dudes. Like that was literally their mantra, was just draft big dudes. And Frederick Gauthier is a big dude. He is 6'5", 239. So big guy.
Guy's a horse.
So obviously he wasn't very good at skating. He was a very bad skater and didn't really have good hands. Had a okay shot. He was just a big guy, and that was really it. Like
He's your prototypical power forward.
Yeah, he played.
He's not good.
He's
as much.
French, so he played in the Q, and his first year in 2012-13 in the Q. So he got to the Q in his draft year. And he, in 62 games, had 60 points. And as an overager, had 52 points in 54 games. And his third year, his second as an overager, had 32 points in 37 games. Now, generally speaking, overagers and junior dominate because they're playing against children. And they're
more
20.
physically mature.
Yeah. So generally speaking, they should just be dominating, and he wasn't doing that. So obviously he needs a lot to work on in his game. And he's put in a ton of work and got himself to the point where he played 61 NHL games this year, and his skating is night and day in terms of his draft year. His shot is pretty underrated for a fourth liner. I mean, that's a great example of player development.
With the advanced stats and stuff that I've seen on him, he actually is a dangerous player for the fourth line, for a fourth line player. He actually gets like really good quality chances.
Yeah, if he just, keeps working, and he's a workhorse, he's always going to keep working. And he's 6'5", 239, probably heavier, I would imagine, because they don't obviously update his weight all the time online. If he just works himself into getting better on the PK and stuff, which I'm sure that's what his role will be next season, depending on if Spezza stays or not. I mean, he'll be a solid NHL center. And if he can go from being arguably a bad first-round pick to being a good PK guy on the fourth line, that's a success story in my eyes. And I can't think of any Buffalo stories that are like that.
Because, like I said, they don't have those late-round guys that are coming up and succeeding.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at Sweeney with Boston, what he was known for and why he ultimately got the job as the GM is he's extremely good at drafting.
Mm-hmm.
If you went through and looked at the players that he's drafted, the Bruins haven't had early picks. The earliest they've gotten with him, I think, was Charlie McAvoy, about 15th, and they traded
the
to
highest,
get the 14th.
I thought we had him with 10, 11, and 15th.
No, we had 14, 15, 16
14,
one year,
15,
but
16.
with our own picks. I'm not with the picks that you traded for.
Yeah.
He even picked decent guys. Jake DeBrusk being one of them, but that's first round talent. If you look at the second round talent that he's gotten, Brandon Carlo's on there.
Yeah, and again, Boston is known for developing D-men at will. And they put a lot of time and effort into making sure that the way they play, they will always have defensemen ready to go to call up. And if they're not consistent NHL level talent, they're almost there consistently.
I mean, the same thing with Jeremy Lauzon, second round talent, quote unquote, because that's when he was drafted.
Yep.
That kid is good.
I was gonna say, I thought he was a late first rounder.
That is, in my eyes, he could play NHL hockey consistently, night in and night out, for any team in the NHL.
I mean, you speak highly of him. There's obviously a reason, more than one, I would assume, why he's not in that
with Boston having
of six.
A really deep top six.
Yeah, but I mean,
but he's getting the chance now. He's young. He makes stupid mistakes.
Yeah, young D-men make dumb mistakes. I mean,
he's improved a lot, and I speak highly of him because I see the progress that he's made. But that's just another one of those things where I say the later round picks, they come up and play.
Yep.
Patrice Bergeron being another one for the Boston Bruins. He was a second or third round pick, and he's your franchise center.
Yeah.
David Krejci. I mean,
Buffalo just needs to put more resources into that. And for this draft, I would imagine if they just want to disregard all the reports that they had from their scouts, they're just going to go get some information from the third-party services and then build their scouting staff from then. But there is rumor that the majority of their scouting is just going to be video scouting, which
I think that's the best way for them to do it right now, is take it into their own hands and review
just
things
for
themselves.
this year.
No, yeah, this year.
Doing video scouting entirely,
it's exhausting.
Well, it's just tough because, one, you're at the discretion of the cameraman. Even in the 3 big junior leagues in Canada, most teams there don't have good cameras. And you would think the country that is just, known for hockey, and they have 3 big junior leagues, you would think they'd have more resources put into that. But there's only a few that actually have good quality.
Probably like the really main, like London probably has good
London
cameras.
is the best in terms of production quality. But then if you want to go into Europe, if the player's not playing in one of the European pro leagues,
you're probably not going to get footage of them.
Yeah,
if anything.
It's going to be tough to find good footage. If you
that
want
has to be in, you have to be there in person to really see it.
Yeah, if you want to watch a player from Russia who's not playing in the KHL, good luck. It's impossible. Yeah, it's just.
But I think that's the easiest way to do it now, rather than just try to fucking half-ass it and just get a scouting staff as quick as possible. The best way to do it is take your time, get scouts that you truly trust.
And there's good scouting for those third-party services. You know what I mean? So you can trust what they have to say.
You just need to get people that you can trust, people that you could talk to and have that same idea, the same ideas as you. And you just take your time this year and just review the prospects yourself.
Right.
You go through the videos because there's going to be plenty of footage. It may not be the best quality, but there's going to be plenty of footage of CHL and USHL guys, especially the USHL. They really push this agenda for trying to get these players drafted.
Yeah, and the USHL guys, I don't know why they just tend to not crack the top 10. It could just be because hockey, the quote-unquote, hockey men that work in the league and are GMs and whatnot, maybe they just don't trust that the quality of competition there is on par with the CHL. So maybe they just assume that those guys are worse, and that might just
stupid.
It could just be completely fabricated in their head, and it's just a stigma they have against the USHL. But
I really think it is the stigma, because if you look at Jack Eichel, Johnny Gaudreau, Charlie McAvoy, these are all guys that went through that system, and they're dominant players.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some GMs that are, way younger. I feel like if there's going to be one team that's just going to be consistently just racking up good players from the USHL, it's going to be Arizona, because they have a young GM who's not going to be biased towards that, and they're just, in the U.S. So
I can even
naturally
see
they're
Detroit
going
doing it, because
Yeah.
you never know with Stevie Y. If he believes that the best talent is in a lower league, he's going to take the best talent.
Oh, wherever the talent is, he's going to find it.
And he learned from the best. The very first open-minded GM was Scotty Bowman. He went out and he got international players when international players were frowned upon.
Yeah, which again was just a fabricated mindset.
He proved that if you just put them in the right environment, they're going to succeed.
Well, they're just on par players. I mean, that's all there is to it. It was just
Sometimes
It was just a
even an
bias
on-par
created
player.
by Don Cherry. Honestly, that's all it was.
I love that man, but
Yeah, he's got
he's nuts.
some views that just don't jive. They don't make sense.
There's points where that guy is a straight vibe, and then there's other points where he just doesn't pass the vibe check.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't be him if he didn't say those things, though. If he didn't say those...
His thing is being controversial.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think he says something controversial just to say something controversial, not whether he actually believes it or not. But because he's Don Cherry, he's going to make it seem like he believes it. And he does a good job at it, too.
Yeah, I mean, with the European thing, it was kind of proven that that's genuinely what he thought. So, I mean, and then the thing that got him fired, it seemed like he genuinely believed that. I mean, Ron McLean they're good friends, but he's like, yeah, that's kind of, what he thinks, unfortunately.
He truly does think that it's Canadian hockey or no hockey.
It was time for him to go. He had a good run, though. Great run. Anyways, let's wrap her up here by going to the NBA.
All right, I'm back. I'm awake.
Dylan, welcome back.
Oh, yeah.
How was the nap?
That's all right.
So I don't know what you specifically wanted to talk about, so just take it away.
Well, there's a little thing in between with a hockey player and Bruin player. A hockey player and a Celtic player. Sorry. Right now in Boston.
Here it is. Dylan moment number 1.
We're back. And it's both Tuukka and Tatum's pissing me off right now. I get there's COVID. And I'm giving a little bit more leeway to Tuukka because there's nothing he can really do to practice. And there's not a lot of rinks open to open up. But for God's damn sakes, Tatum, you're a all-star player. I'm going to say best player on your team, third best in the East in conference, and you don't own a goddamn basketball hoop in your outside house?
That's pathetic because it's a lot harder for hockey players to go out and practice. If you're an ice hockey player, you can only do so much playing street hockey.
Well, I mean, you have the synthetic ice, which honestly, it's actually pretty good nowadays. So you could, if you're an NHL player, your basement's pretty good size.
Well, yeah, but
or you have a pretty big garage. Like you can fill that space up and keep it AC'd.
That's why I was giving him Tuukka a little bit more.
So I'm just saying.
I own a goddamn basketball hoop outside my house, and I'm broke.
It's harder to practice being an NHL player. Whereas if you're a basketball player, whether you're pro or not, you could be Jimmy down the street and have a basketball net and practice.
But the thing that's pissing me off more is what I'm hearing is instead of going to the gym and working out and doing all this stuff, they're focusing on their goddamn fucking golf game. And golf is a game you have to go out there every single day and consecutively try to get better.
The Bruins just need to prepare for when they're outed in the second round.
There it is.
But the thing is, Tatum
Rask is preparing for life after hockey.
3 years out, and you haven't even gotten a championship yet, and you're focusing on your fucking golf game? Instead of focusing on trying to be not one of the best, but the best player in the Eastern Conference in the Eastern Conference, because you don't got much over there. You got Jimmy Butler. You got
Antetokounmpo.
Giannis is. You're right.
I don't even know what you just said.
Giannis
He's the
Antetokounmpo.
best player
He
in
is
the
the
league.
best player, but Tatum is second or third right behind him.
Joel Embiid can be put in that conversation too.
It is iffy.
When he's healthy.
When he's healthy.
When he's
Exactly.
healthy.
He's not healthy. And Philadelphia is its own problem with their own down there. That's why I would put Tatum up there as the second or third. And you're not focusing on that. You're focusing on your career that's going to be down 15, 20 years further down of freaking golfing.
Well,
Like,
here's the thing.
I like to shit on Brady, and I know it's a different sport, but at least he's out here in March illegally practicing football at the age of 42 years old to still play in the league.
Here's the thing, though. The NBA is coming back, but we know the NHL is coming back first because they just got the ball moving. Well, the puck moving, not ball.
Yeah.
Got the puck rolling
Focus
a little bit
your
more.
sport.
And they just started doing the work first. But we don't even know exactly when the NHL is coming back, so we don't.
And we know when the
We have
NBA
a
comes back.
Target date.
Yeah, when are they targeting to come back?
The target or the actual date is, so right now all the teams, Celtics and all of them are leaving next Tuesday. They're all going down to Orlando. They all have to be tested and everything. Actually, they already got tested.
And that's the
And
30th.
17th, yeah, that's the 30th.
That's the target date for the first play-in.
Yeah, I mean,
But you still need your hub cities, and they haven't even named them yet.
yeah, but that takes 2 seconds, and then you get the flights.
And
You can move that once you know. It's not going to take that long to figure it out.
in the start, it's not even the playoffs yet. The first 8 games you play don't start until July 30th. So there's a whole month of them getting down there, situated, practicing, and that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a whole month, as long as he's staying in shape.
But he's not focusing on what he needs to focus on. He is
Yeah, but-
21,
Well, if
22
they're not
years
going
old.
directly into playoffs, then I guess he's just going to use these as warm-ups.
And, I mean, think about it, though. Like, he's probably got a nice house. Who's to say he doesn't have a net somewhere in his house?
He
And
didn't.
Dylan, have you been to his house?
The Celtics organization had to ship him a goddamn net. He didn't have a net. He did not own a basketball hoop at his house.
That's odd.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I was saying he didn't own one.
It
He
just
had to
makes me
have
think-
one shipped out to him.
It just makes me think that he had a court that he was going to that was nearby his house.
I don't even
Yeah,
know
I
that.
mean, maybe
No,
he
because he's
just-
been. The reports is he's been to the golf course every single day.
That's First off, why are people following him around during
Hello,
COVID?
TMZ follows everybody
But
around
it's cold.
all the
Why are
time.
they following each other? That's odd.
That sounds.
I mean,
Yeah,
as
they
long
don't
as they're
follow
socially
everybody.
distant.
They don't follow hockey players.
Yeah, they don't follow hockey players. That's odd. I mean, like maybe he had one and it just wasn't an NBA like regulation one, and he wanted an NBA regulation net.
Really doubt it because there was the same thing with Miami Heat players.
Kid's mini net, one of the little
Yeah, I
plastic
think-
ones.
Well, yeah, for his kid.
It's
He's just coming over his kid, dunking on him.
it's not looking.
That's why it's not looking
it's
good
not
for him, right?
It's not favorably towards him, I
And
mean,
he can't
it's-
go. And to your point out, he can't go out to an outside city hoop.
No, I'm saying maybe that's why he didn't have a net, was because he was probably just taking advantage of having.
Yeah, but after maybe a month or so, after playing all your video games with Gordon Hayward, you should go and get a net and focus once when you found out, hey, basketball is coming back soon and we're going straight into playoffs. And we are fighting for that second seed so we don't have to play Philadelphia in the first round. Because that is a nightmare matchup. Just like Toronto has their nightmare matchup in the second round against Boston.
Well, first round. Technically, it is the second round of hockey being played, but it's technically the first round.
It's the first round, and it's only when there's game sevens.
Yep.
If Toronto sweeps them, then there's no
Yeah,
issue.
there it is.
If
There it is.
they're up 3-0, if Boston is up 3-0, then there's no problem.
Yeah, there it is.
It's only game sevens.
But that's what just has been aggravating me, that you have to have the organization. You couldn't even pay with your fat contract of an NBA contract.
I mean, they're the NBA team. They have nets. Why would you buy one?
Well, yeah, but still, you couldn't have already had one because you have to.
He needs to take.
And
the
how old?
initiative.
How old is he?
22.
Okay,
No, 21.
When did he come into the league?
3 years ago.
Really?
Yes.
So he came in as an 18-year-old? you were supposed
Yeah,
to go
no,
through
he was
college
late.
for
He did.
NBA.
He played one. He's a late
Yeah, you
birthday.
Have to play 1 year.
You only have to play 1 year.
He
And
played
actually,
1
they're
year.
taking away that rule. You can actually play in high school now and go back in now.
They're finally bringing that back.
Some teams are. There was a kid drafted this year that was out of high school.
Did Kobe do that? Was that Kobe did?
Kobe did it. LeBron did it. I think
They
LeBron
were-
was
they
the
were
last
some-
one.
LeBron was one of the lasts.
And then they said, you need an education. And then
Well,
people
they
are sitting
did.
there saying, oh, well, if you're like that, you have the G League. Why can't we just go straight into the G League?
Well, they did. They did
Why do
it.
they call it the G League?
Because it's sponsored by Gatorade. It used to be the
Oh,
G League.
okay.
But now it's the G League.
I was gonna say there's so many letters before. Why are you just going with G? All right. Well, I
Yeah, it
didn't know
used to
that.
be the D, but now it's the G
They
League.
did
All right,
because
then.
it was development.
Yeah, it was the
They
development.
did
And then
it because a lot of those guys that were coming out of high school just they were really good players. Like Kobe Bryant's one of the greatest players to ever play the game. But it took him about 3 or 4 years to really become what he was.
Mhm.
It took him a while.
And they wanted you to be like play against other like top tier players
So they
for like a
felt-
season.
If you went to college and you played at least a year at college, you would develop a lot better.
And definitely if you're going to a top D1 school where you're making the brackets, that is
I
one of the
think-
toughest basketball.
I think you develop better going to a no-name school, like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Even if it's like Loyola, which is a decent, but it's one of those
But you
no-name
have to
colleges.
play a tough college though to be
No,
able.
exactly. You develop better because it relies on you solely to carry that team, and that's what basketball is.
It's really
a
hard.
star-driven league.
If you're not wearing the color blue, you ain't really getting drafted into the league apparently because you got to come from Duke or Kentucky to really get drafted into the first round.
I mean, if you're a good player, you're going to go to a good college. If you're perfect example, Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
Tim Duncan
Oh yeah, I love that guy.
was an incredible player. He was one of my favorite to watch. He went to a college that had no business being in the brackets because he.
Well, D
led
Rose
them.
did the same thing, but again, his ankle or his knees. We don't have to bring that one
Derrick
up, but
Rose
That's
was
like-
going to be the best player in the NBA.
he would have been.
He would have been the absolute best player in the NBA, and
And one good layup with a bad knees and done for your life.
his knees said, "You thought."
But that's why I'm saying, like, before we went in there, he was dropping 21 points a game around. And
I assume that's good.
yes, that's top. Well, compared to a lot of teams where there's only one player dropping 30 and the rest are like 10.
You want
The
your-
Celtics had 4 to 5 players with 20 points.
You want your star players averaging.
So
around
that's probably
20,
like having.
25.
It's like
probably
having 2 to 3 goals a game.
Well, that's like having like 3 30-goal scorers on your team, probably, right? Okay.
Bergeron, Marchand, Pastrnak.
And he's that person, if you're losing, you give him the ball, he's driving in, he's finishing, and he can go back and play defense.
He had ice in his veins.
That's why when before this whole COVID crap happened, we sat there and said, there's talk on the radio, who was better, Pastrnak or Tatum? I said Tatum because Tatum can go back and play defense. After saying, here, I'm just going to dunk right over you, suck my cock, and I'm going to go back and
I mean,
reject
why
your
would
ass.
hang on? But why would Pasternak want to play defense when he could just take the puck and score instead?
Because he
Does he-
still needs to go back and play.
He
You can do
does.
the same
No, no,
thing
no, no,
with
but why,
basketball.
But why play defense if
It's
instead of
two
playing
different things.
defense, you just never do it because you always have the puck and you're always scoring? That seems like way more fun.
Pastrnak goes back and plays defense. He's not the best at it. He's never going to be the best at it. It's
No.
not his role.
It's not what he is.
He is so good off the rush. That's what his role is. Off the rush, come in with the puck, and he creates opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's system and the group of guys they have is so good on defense that all they really need is one goal scorer.
Okay, so-
and he's it.
And
Let's-
that's where my argument comes. Tatum's a small forward. He does have a liability having to go out there and play defense. And it's a lot different than hockey, because hockey is very rotational. Basketball is more
What's
man-driven.
his first name? Tatum?
Jason.
Jason.
Tatum.
It's Jayson.
Why? Why?
Yeah,
Why
J-A-Y-S-O-N.
spell it that way?
It's Jason.
I really hope his dad's name is Jay.
But
Wait,
the
did you
way
say
I look at it,
small?
small forward, power forward.
So you're not saying like his height?
No.
I was
His
going to
po-
say
so
he's
the positions
6'8".
go-
What are you talking
The
about?
positions go point guard where it's about 6 foot, 6'1".
Okay.
Unless you're Ben Simmons.
Unless you're Ben Simmons, who's supposed to be a small forward, and he's like, yeah, just run up the court.
Even Magic Johnson, too.
Yeah, well, he could play center. He
could
did play
any-
center.
He can play any position.
Then shooting guard, which is more of your shooters, obviously.
And that can range. You can have a taller, lankier guy like
Yeah.
Clay, kind of.
And then you have small forward who's there for driving in and playing defense. And your power forward and center. It's changed it a little bit. It used to be you go straight to the net and drive it in, but now a lot of them are starting to hit 3-pointers. But they're mostly there to get boards and reject anybody who wants to come into your paint.
But that's what I mean. Is basketball is it's very man rotational. It's not much of a zone rotational. So
Depends on how you
when you're
run
playing,
your team.
when your man moves, you move with him. Unless you guys are playing a zone defense, then if anybody is in your zone, that's who you're on.
Because
no matter what, you are reliable defensively. In hockey, it doesn't have to be that way because you have your two defensemen and you have your center.
Well, there's two ways of doing it because you can go with the man-on-man defense, which teams that are better defensively tend to do, like Boston. But if you're a team who is more offensively minded, like Toronto, let's say, they don't really do the man-on-man. They do a rotational style. It's not
That's what
zone.
I mean, where it's more rotational. There is really no zone defense in NHL.
Because it's so quick and so small, you can't... The puck is so small, you can't really have a zone
and
for the
that's
puck.
what really separates a good defensive team in the NHL is communication. If you're able to communicate
Exactly.
very clearly and play that man-to-man, you're going to succeed.
And good teams defensively know when to abandon the man-to-man on a moment's notice because they need to address what's happening right now.
So this is how I would look at it, though, going back to comparing Pastrnak and Tatum. If you take away all your key players around them, do you think they could be a decent, not great, because they're not going to be great, because both sports you have to have multiple players.
Basketball is such a star-driven league. I really think you
need at least 2 to 3 people to make a championship.
To make a championship, but to be even a successful team, and a successful team is a team that's going to make it towards the second round, you can have just one guy. You can have a team that's just LeBron and still succeed.
But you need one. But what I'm saying, yes, that's what I'm saying. Like if you took away Kemba, Brown, Hayward, I don't even want to say Cantor. Cantor sucks.
You can't do it. Ha. Ha.
And you start with Wanamaker.
Did you see it? Because I saw it.
Take away Smart too.
No, I didn't see it.
you take away Smart too because he's a good 6-man. You have Wanamaker and all of them off the bench, and with Tatum, I feel like they could go better than Pastrnak playing with
like I said,
their
it's
third and fourth line
league. So I feel like there's also just such a drop-off in basketball. Your best players go out and play against your best players. And if you're a better player than the better players on the other team, you're going to succeed. When you play hockey, it doesn't matter what line matches up with what. Because my favorite thing to look at is the Bergeron line in the 2017 playoffs were matched up against the Brian Boyle line.
We didn't play in 2017.
Was it 18 then?
We've done 18 and 19 consecutively.
Okay, was it 18 that you guys had Brian Boyle?
Yes.
Okay, so it was the Brian Boyle line matched up against the Bergeron line.
It's a
That's
terrible
the
idea.
First and fourth line, and they held their own.
They did okay.
And if you look at the Bruins team now, you know what Cassidy's favorite strategy to do is? It's to match up the Corrali line against the first line of the other team.
Yeah, I mean, it would... I'm just going to assume that Corrali's faster than Bergeron. Just going to take a guess.
Corrali's got wheels, but it's a defense. That's what it is. That's what our fourth line is. They're a defensive line. It's Corrali and Nordstrom. Mm-hmm. I don't have to speak too much on Nordstrom. If you watch him, he's a very good two-way forward.
Yeah, I mean, if your fourth line can go in against most NHL top lines and just come away with a dead even score on that shift, not for or against, great shift. Fantastic. If you can do that every single shift or almost every single shift.
And that's what Cassidy does.
Yeah.
The start of the game, it's top line gets top line, most likely. That's usually how they start. But when the game starts to get to the dying moments, Cassidy sends out that fourth line. Not because he expects them to score. If they do, that's a fucking plus.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. They have
just keep the puck out of the net.
Yeah, it's I can't remember what team this was, but it was back when Lemieux was in his glory days, and the Penguins were playing some team in the playoffs, and again, I can't remember who it was, but basically the opponent's coach asked all of his players, okay,
I think it was the North Stars.
I don't remember. Can you play a shift against Lemieux and just come away even. And he just went through the whole team and asked them if they could do that. And he goes, okay, if you all stick to your word and can do that, we can win this series. Because, I mean, yeah, that's all you had to do when it was just Lemieux. You just had to come away even against him, and you would most likely win the game.
I'm going to round us back into what we were talking about, only because we're...
I got to take a phone call real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Hello? Yep.
But yeah, no.
Okay.
And we're back.
So-
Except take a phone call. Sorry about that.
Like I was saying, we've been off for about 2 hours, so let's try to wrap it up. The last thing we're talking about, the biggest problem with me, two of the biggest problems with the coming back to the playoffs in the little bubble they call in basketball is, one, and I know you sat there and said you disagree with me, and I'm interested to see because you are Mr. COVID himself.
Yeah.
Disney's letting their employees, without getting tested or anything, go in and out of the facilities, the rooms, and everything, all willy-nilly. And that's why they lost a lot of key players. Because he's not, like, I'm going to say this name, he's not the all-star, but if it's coming down to the wire, you rather have Avery Bradley guarding up against a good player than Caruso.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like comparing them. Avery Bradley is like a Krejci,
Okay.
and Caruso is a Danton Heinen.
Okay.
That's not that good because Danton Heinen was a very good defensive forward.
Shut up. He's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
No, defensively he was very good. Offensively,
He's okay. We'll wrap it up with just my thoughts on the Disney thing with the NBA.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple of reasons why I disagree with you on this and why I don't think it's that big of a deal the way they're treating it. One, they don't have to lock it down until 2 weeks prior to the actual play starting. And if everybody's hopefully already clean, then it's less of a risk. Two, the more research that's been done on COVID, the people that are at risk of actually being, killed by this are not NBA level athletes.
Well, no, but it's more of like looking out to the family because they can carry it over. That's why, again, Avery Bradley's not going. He has a 6-year-old boy who could die from this.
Yeah, but the family shouldn't be there.
No, but you can still get it and carry it on to your family. You don't have to get very sick. But there
as
is
a
a
precaution.
thing.
It's on you.
But think about it this way, Dylan. If everybody's tested and everybody's clean and nobody else is in contact with this clean group of people, nothing can happen.
Well, that's the thing. That's not what Disney's doing. They're letting their employees... It's not like they're staying there.
But they don't have to lock it down until 2 weeks prior. They're probably going to lock it down earlier, so if anybody does get sick, they can.
They weren't doing.
get
They
better.
weren't talking about that though. They weren't going to do that.
Again, it's also in Florida where...
It's getting high again in Florida.
Because it's Florida. They're
So that's why
not
I'm
the
saying
brightest
this is a
group of
concern
people.
There's
because
a reason you laugh every time you see Florida man or Florida woman in a meme title.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning, but at the same time, if everybody's clean and they do lock it down at some point and everybody's clean at that point, and if somebody somehow does get it after the play is done, then he can just quarantine himself and he can go home to his family and be fine.
And then the other thing you just pointed out, and what I had a problem with too, you sat there and said the family shouldn't be there. If they didn't go, if they don't have family, which the staff isn't getting, and I'm not really happy about that, you're losing your family for 3 months.
And they've been with their family for 3 months straight. It's even.
But the difference is in the regular league, most families in the NBA, most of their families move to the city they're playing in.
And is this normal circumstances? No. Suck it up.
Everybody wants the support, but you've just... in Tatum's case, you've spent more than enough time playing video games and hanging out with your family.
And again, nobody's making you play. If you don't want to play, if you don't want to suck it up and just go play in the NBA
Then
for a
pussy
few
out.
months under these severe circumstances, then just stay home. That's their decision. If you want to play, you're going to play within these guidelines. Suck it up. That's how they have to do it.
But how are you going to let the players' families go, but not the staffs?
What do you mean?
The players are allowed, after the little bubble games, to find out who's the 8 teams in the West and the 8 teams in the East. Players are allowed to have a room filled. You can only fit as many people into a room. Have their family come.
Yes, that's
What's
probably
the
like
point
what?
of having the staff?
But you can't have the staff family come.
Why do they need
The staff is like coaching and assistant coaches.
I understand that, but why do they need to be there?
Because they have to get coached by the players.
Why does their family need to be there?
Because it's the same. Why does the NBA players' family get to be there?
The players.
No,
feel
that's
like
what
they
he's
need
saying.
that
Why do they
support.
have to be there?
No, he's just saying that
No,
they
I'm
need the
saying
support.
The players feel like they need that support. I don't think the family needs to
And
be
they
there
don't.
at all. They
They
don't,
don't
really.
need
They're-
the support.
they're-
You're an NBA player.
You're at a high enough level.
How
to
would
play
you
with
feel
that.
if you got taken away from your family for 3 months?
I was just with them for long enough,
Yeah,
and it sucks. I'm a very family oriented person.
same as me. But if I'm
But-
home constantly with my family for 3 months straight without a break, it gets a little tiring.
Now, I can put up with that. I
mean,
don't care,
you could
but
admit that too. It gets a little tiring. It does.
you live with them 24/7, and you can barely stand them.
I mean, like, look, if you want to be a pro athlete within
There's
these
sacrifices
circumstances,
you have to make.
yeah, you have to make a sacrifice. I'm sorry, I don't want you to have to, but that's the world we're living in right now.
And
Because NHL players are doing the same thing.
if you want to look on the bright side of things, at least they're going to get to see their families. Unlike military.
Yeah,
You go to the military, you don't see your family for years.
I mean, it depends how long.
Depending on how long you're
deployment's usually like 9 months. It could be longer, but it's usually like 9 months.
If you're like an active duty, you're out fighting, you're
Yeah.
not going to see your family for a long time.
Yeah, and you don't get to go home for a little break. You have to be in that the whole time.
So,
And in terms of the NHL, Jason Spezza on the Leafs, he's 38 and he has a wife and kids. You don't think he's gonna, miss his family? He's going to, but he's already said he's gonna play because he's 38. He doesn't have a cup and his window's closing. So he just tells his kids, look, this is my last shot and, I'm gonna go away for a little while. And, that's
You
the
also have to-
sacrifice he's going to make.
The way
And his
I'm
wife
looking at it
gonna
is
make
also-
the same sacrifice too.
Parenting wise as well, because like Tatum and Stevens and them, they got young kids. They
I'm
are
not
young
saying
coaches.
It's going to be easy.
I understand that, but even in the regular season, if this was a normal, 2021 season, most of your time is spent with the team at practice or you're playing games. You don't get much family time at all.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it's something that if you want to play, this is what you're going to have
They're
to do.
already kind of used to it.
Well, no, because it depends on the players. No, if you're backups, no, you don't get to see the family much. But the starting players do see their family much.
Yeah, when
A
the
lot.
families are there to watch them play.
They had to
Other
watch them
than
play.
that-
Most basketball players, it's mostly morning shoot-arounds and morning practice. They get the rest of the day off if they don't have a game, or they're flying out and they're gone for maybe 1 to 2 weeks, and they're back with their family.
I watched it behind the B. I just happened to catch it. And Bruce Cassidy said a lot of his time and a lot of players' time is dedicated towards the practice and towards, with him, it's watching film on the other team. And I'm sure the captains take part in that and whatever players want to. So a lot of time is dedicated towards being with the team and doing team-orientated stuff. And
Yeah, it's a sacrifice that you and your family are making.
so you're already not
do what
seeing
you
your
wanna do.
family that much as it is.
I mean, if you've ever watched, for the people listening, if you've ever watched Miracle, the head coach for the team, there was part of the movie where he would just spend many nights in his office just watching film and basically ignoring his wife. He didn't go about it that great because he didn't really communicate what was going on at first, but he eventually did. And they both agreed to make that sacrifice. And if that's what you want to do, then that's what you're going to do. You don't have to do it. No one's saying you have to.
But if you want to be successful, you have to make those sacrifices. That's why Brady's successful as he is.
Yeah.
He spends time with his family, and I'm sure he wants
And
to
he gets
spend
they
more
get the
time.
options to not go to practices as well,
And I'm
unlike
sure
other
he wants
sports.
to spend more time, but when he was at his most successful, his entire day was pretty much dedicated to studying film.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should wrap it up here because we're basically saying the same thing over and over. We're gonna be back next week, right? We can record sometime next week, probably.
I'm off on Wednesday.
We'll
I'm
figure
gonna
it
be
out.
down here, but Thursdays and Fridays I'm completely free, like no plans.
We'll be back when we're figuring out a semi-consistent schedule. Hopefully, we'll be here again next week. And with that being said, we'll see you guys later.
Pip pip cheerio.